Good evening, friends, and welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. You know the drill. We're retired New York City police detectives and 9/11 World Trade Center first responders. If you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, you're in the right spot. Hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you get all things DutyRon and this guy, my partner in crime, Ed Wallace, when we go live or upload another video. Hey, tonight we're going to talk about the Nancy Guthrie case. The FBI was kept out for the first 4 days. We kind of knew that, but we didn't know the exact time. But Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos, according to the FBI Director, held the FBI resources back for 4 whole days. And Ed, as you and I know as investigators, the first 24 to 48 hours are crucial, not just only the crime scene, blunders and mistakes. The decisions that get made in that first 24 to 48 hours are crucial. And we can't overemphasize that enough. We've investigated hundreds, arguably thousands of crimes over the course of our time. And Ed, I just want to get your thought for the audience. We got a great guest, Sergeant Aaron Cross from the Pima County Sheriff's Department. He is the president of the Pima County Deputies Organization since 2023, and we're honored to have Sarge hang out with us tonight.
All right. Yeah, so we've talked about this in numerous broadcasts, that the first 24 to 48 hours are critical in any investigation. Obviously, missing persons as well, okay? And it's a shame when valuable resources that you don't have in terms of personnel, equipment, laboratory, monies, planes, transportation, all these things that could have been used in the first 48 hours were put on hold in that first 4 days of this investigation.
Yeah, you know, Ed, I got to put us up close because this is, we're too close. This is important to emphasize. Big ego, spiteful, a man who is, his way or the highway. And, we're not just saying this just to say it. We're getting it from people who worked for him, past and present. And we're going to hear it again tonight when we get into the discussion with Sergeant Cross. And shout out to Mama Cross. I know she's a huge fan of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, obviously a huge fan of her son. Good evening. Good to see you, and thank you for joining. All right, let's take a listen to this little piece. This is from our friends at News Nation.
Well, nearly 100 days into the search for Nancy Guthrie, and the Pima County Sheriff's Department doesn't have a single suspect. And now FBI Director Kash Patel says Sheriff Nanos and his department forced the feds onto the sidelines during the case's most crucial moments.
I knew from my sources they were trying to keep you guys out.
They did. Here's how
time matters in an investigation.
The first 48 hours of anyone's disappearance are the most critical.
Joining us now, News Nation senior national correspondent Brian Enton. Brian, tell us more about what Director Patel said.
Yeah, we knew a little bit of this, Katie, but I had no idea some of these details. When Patel spoke with Sean Hannity, he said that they were essentially kept out of the Nancy Guthrie investigation. The FBI was for the first 4 days. The first 4 days, they wouldn't involve the FBI. You know how important the first.
Ed, I hate to stop these things, but I always have to do this because I want the people who are watching to get this into perspective here. Kash Patel, the FBI director, said for the first 4 days, you heard it right there on Sean Hannity's podcast, February 2nd of 2026, Pima County Sheriff, this guy that's up on the screen, Chris Nanos, had his first press conference. And Ed, at that first press conference was one member of the service in plain clothes, and that was the homicide detective sergeant. Very, very brand new in rank of sergeant, and also never investigated a homicide. And he was at that podium for a short period of time, but right behind him, 5 on the 5th, which was 4 days later, 3 days later, the FBI shows up at the press conference, at the second press conference. There was 2 agents of the FBI out with the sheriff. So it's no coincidence. And, you know, a lot of people are trying to twist this whole thing. I don't care whose side you're on with your political views. It's not about that with us. It's about the facts. And we know the history of this man right here. And it's not a good history as it pertains to the FBI. Right, Ed?
That's correct. That's correct. In that first press conference, there was no FBI to be found. How quickly did they close the crime scene? There was no FBI that went to the crime scene to assist. There was no agents that I saw canvassing the neighborhood in those first crucial 48 hours and 4 days. It was only until the second press conference, which was how many days later?
That was from the 1st of February. It was the 5th. So it was 4 days. It was 4 days.
And then the FBI showed up at the second press conference.
Correct. And we're going to show that a little bit later. Let me just play the rest of this and we'll bring on Sergeant Cross.
First 48 hours can be with a missing persons investigation. So that was shocking. The other thing is, and I had no idea about this until Director Patel said this today, that they had an airplane. The FBI had an airplane in Arizona on standby, ready to take the DNA from the Nancy Guthrie crime scene back to Quantico so that it could be tested. And we now know that this was a hair strand, a very important hair strand that was found inside the house. But the sheriff decided not to send that DNA to the FBI lab, instead to send it to their private lab in Florida. In fact, the FBI didn't even get that hair strand until a couple of weeks ago. We knew there was frustration about that, but we had no idea. The FBI actually had a plane on the ground, ready to go, and the sheriff just ignored them.
I'm going to stop it there because we've got to bring in our guest. Ed, first off, the plane, how critical is that? And there's no way in hell that Chris Nanos didn't know that the FBI had a plane and all of those resources available to him, because I guarantee you that the agent in charge conveyed the message of the FBI director. If the FBI director claimed that he was sending hundreds of FBI personnel down into Tucson, there's just no way that the sheriff did not know what was available to him and how important would have been to get that hair strand and get that over to Quantico or into the pipelines. He said it would only take 4 or 5 days to get an answer on some of the things that, evidence wise, as it pertains to the doorbell and so forth.
So this is critical. I mean, they could have gotten that hair to the FBI lab as soon as possible because that plane was standing by. And they would have looked at it under a microscope, seen that there was no bulb attached to it, and then realized, okay, they can't handle this, and they could have sent it to the lab in California immediately to have them work up that hair. Okay. Instead, it took how many days before the lab in Florida, who wasn't successful with the hair, sent it to the FBI, who has to now send it to the California lab. Okay. So you have all this delay, needless delay. And the FBI wasn't going to charge them for flying that hair sample out to their laboratory. They probably weren't going to charge them for the lab analysis or any of this stuff. In addition, how did the hair get from Nanos' office to the Florida lab? I guarantee you the sheriff's office didn't fly it there. They probably FedExed it.
Yeah, they probably mailed it. Hey, let's bring in our guest, Sergeant Aaron Cross. As we all know, active sergeant, 26 years on the job. He's hanging around for another 2. I don't know how he's going to do it, but he's doing it. President of the Pima County Deputies Organization since 2023. Sergeant Cross, thank you for taking the time. Our audience loves you, and not only loves you, they love your mom.
I do as well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. So you heard a little bit about what we were talking about. You were in the green room listening behind the scenes. Were we off on any of our analysis of some of these things that has taken place in this Nancy Guthrie fumbled investigation?
No. After Director Patel made these comments, obviously I got a lot of questions from media. So today I spent a large part of it kind of digging around, speaking with several of my members who were detectives, just asking them kind of what their perception was. And, I need to preface this by saying that no one knows, what conversations happened between the upper tier of command and the FBI. So this is only from the detective's perspective. But they described it as, and after speaking with them, I kind of have drawn the conclusion that I think what Director Patel is talking about was a perception from their point of view, but it was a perception born out of the wrong information. And what I mean by that is the FBI probably felt boxed out because they weren't given information about the investigation, even though they were willing to help. What was described to me by the detectives that I spoke with today was that it was described as a quote shit show inside the CID unit in the days following the incident. Units were not even talking to each other. There was no command keeping track really of what's going on. And for example, on numerous occasions, they were told to drop everything and go speak with a witness or a neighbor or somebody. And they would do it and get out there only to find that this person had already been spoken to by 4 or 5 detectives. And so I think what happened is if the information isn't even being shared from unit to unit inside your own agency on the same floor of the same building, what hope was there to give good information to another agency offering to help? And so this is my opinion after speaking with several detectives today. What I think happened is the FBI knew that the sheriff was no fan of them and took the complete lack of information about the investigation as that we were boxing them out, when in reality it was leadership incompetence that should have never happened. That's what I believe.
Interesting.
And your description of a shit show, we're familiar with that because, no department is exempt from that. And I've been in many details where, they ask us to go out and knock on doors or, take care of this apartment complex. And we go to the doors and knock on the doors and they said, oh, we've already been interviewed. So like you're doing double work because the command staff doesn't have a clue that this has already been done. So that's a familiar tune to us, but thank God it doesn't happen that often. But in a case like this, where time is really important, when you have things like that going on behind the scenes, it's discouraging. And for the FBI, when they see that, they're a quick shutdown anyways. But when we look at some of the past interviews with Brian Enton and the retired undersheriff, Rick Gastigar, that was telling for me. And it made me say, when I heard Kash Patel on Hannity, I said, this is something that we heard months ago. This is not something that's breaking news. The sheriff has a history. Can you maybe rehash that a little bit with the viewing audience? Or can it somewhere that you can't go?
Oh, absolutely. And the audience needs to do nothing else but look at his 2016 interview with Kagan 9 following the feds investigating him and several of his chiefs for RICO fund misuse, which resulted in the indictment of one of his chiefs, the suicide of another, and near indictment of Chris Nanos himself. But you could see in that interview his absolute, he detests them. He blames them for losing his election, his first election in 2016. It is widely believed. He says in that interview something to the effect of, if the FBI wants to know what needs real cops, come to us. I mean, that is the level of just dismissal that he has for them, for their office and their capabilities. And I don't think it's changed. And I do believe that has manifested itself in this investigation by the delayed formation of the task force and the utter refusal to turn the investigation over to the FBI as primary. So I do think that his opinion of the FBI has certainly played a role in this investigation. However, in the first week or two, I think that that the lack of information being shared was just due to the chaos in our own agency.
You know, chaos is an acronym, right? It stands for Chief Has Arrived on Scene.
Yeah, and it's funny because when they were describing it to me, that this was all command driven. So this wasn't like the homicide unit got to go back to the office, put their heads together, and figure out what evidence they had, and go forward from there. This was just command giving directives, and I had experienced a lot of that when I was a narcotics detective. You'd have lieutenants and captains who have a 30-second brief on a case dictating what you were going to do and how you were going to handle it. You'd walk past the office, hey, what's going on with your case? And you tell them just a 20-second thing and what you're going to do. And they say, no, we're going to do something else. It was beyond frustrating.
It's poor case management. And,
Yes.
you know, you need to set up an incident command system. You need to have a full working breakdown of what was done, who did what, and
Yes.
what did it reveal, so that you can make these decisions.
Yeah, and the difference is experience. And when you don't have it in that unit, that's what happens. You know, unfortunately.
Yeah, it does. It does. No amount of book knowledge is going to give you what you need for field experience.
Yeah.
You know, and Sarge, you mentioned a few other times you were on with us. You know, as us being retired detectives, you know, we know that sometimes, as we just described here, things can get a little bit, you know, hectic, chaotic, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, a department, say a medium size, as you describe it, a medium to large size department as a Pima County Sheriff's, when you're having, you know, places like the United Cajun Navy, free services from EquiSearch Midwest, the federal government, who's not going to send you a bill for anything that they do, you're not getting a bill from them, and you're not having to pay overtime. You as a boss, you know how they scrutinize and look at every overtime slip that's signed by whoever signs it. Hey, why did this patrolman, why did this sheriff, why did this deputy, go and get overtime? You have to explain everything. There would be no explaining. And Sheriff Nanos, like a little brat, kind of pouted, stomped his feet down and said, no, we're not going to accept this help. We can handle this ourselves. We're going to do this. We're going to send it to our own lab that we've been using for years and years. And I'm not bashing that lab. I'm just saying that there was better decisions, better choices to be made at that time that he failed to make because of his ego, because of being spiteful. I mean, it's ridiculous. Now, I'm going to ask you the question that you probably got asked 50 times today. Did you see the full interview? It was not really long, the little segment on Hannity of the complete Patel interview. Did you watch that whole thing or no?
I watched the portion related to Nancy Guthrie investigation.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That's what I'm referring to here. And the takeaway about the plane, I wanted to kind of pick your brain apart a little bit here in regards to that. As I alluded to, would the FBI hold that information back from Sheriff Nanos, or is that part of when they all decide to get together? As we know, they sit down in a command room or a conference room and they're like, hey, this is what we could bring to the table for you. Is there any possibility in your mind that Sheriff Nanos didn't have any knowledge about the planes, about the, that fixed wing aircraft, the resources that the FBI were looking to bring to the table here? Or is that something that maybe just got lost in the sauce?
I doubt it. I'm sure the feds told him everything that they were offering. And I asked about the DNA, and it sounded like the DNA had already been pretty much shipped off. And Ed, you were right. I believe it was FedExed in rapid fashion to the Florida labs. So, and again, as we've said before, we call balls and strikes, right? And it's entirely possible that by the time the plane was offered, the evidence that had been gathered from inside the home, and now famously there were gloves and other things found later, of course, but upon the initial processing of the scene, it sounded like to me, after speaking with detectives, that was already on its way. to the Florida labs. Now, why we wouldn't take advantage of the feds offering to take that stuff and process it for free, the subsequent evidence found, is beyond me. I am just simply from a fiscally sound decision as a leader of an agency. We don't have unlimited funds in Pima County. We're not a rich county by any stretch. So I think it would have been smarter to take them up on that. And the other thing that caught my attention was less about the plane, but when Director Patel mentioned that I think he said he had hundreds, plural, of agents available to us, both in Tucson and Phoenix. So, I mean, potentially you're looking at between 200 and 400 agents that we wouldn't have to pay the overtime for. We paid a substantial amount of overtime the first couple of weeks. Insane amount of overtime. But if we put every detective on it, as we pretty much did the first couple of weeks, that's 90. I think we had 96 detectives. That's still half of what they're offering at best, or a quarter of what they're offering at worst. So, in my opinion, and the opinion of everyone I've spoken to about this, as soon as the feds found the video footage, and it's hard to cast your mind back to that time, the first week, but as soon as the video footage was found with the perpetrator on the front stoop, that, in my opinion, was the time that this should have immediately been turned over to the feds, to the FBI, to take primary. I totally take advantage of that.
I agree 100%. I have the notes from the last time we spoke. 96 detectives, most experience on this case, have 3 years on the job. 45 are detective first, the least experience. 45 out of those 96.
Yep.
So,
and money-wise, you were speaking. So, what did you get for your bucks? Because that Florida lab is going to send you a bill on the workup they did on that hair, yielded no results that you could use, and that's why it was shipped to the FBI now. So we have this lag in time, okay, and then we have this bill that's coming your way for work that was done on the hair by that lab, and the lab got no results. It's not as if they're not going to charge you for all the work they did attempting to try to get something from the hair. And so we have this huge delay and this big bill, and now the case is still, I dare say, going cold.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars, from what I was told, of just DNA testing, and they waived certain things like overnight, the delivery and working on the weekends that the lab did for them. They waived some of those fees, but that's still hundreds of thousands of dollars that Pima County's got to pay for.
Unbelievable. Let's take a listen to this. It's just a couple of minutes long. I want to just have the audience listen. This is from last night on the Sean Hannity's YouTube channel, Hangout, and it was also simulcast on Fox News.
There, especially with assassination culture. 3 attempts against him. Charlie Kirk is dead. Charlie Kirk, an examination or re-examining how
Dinner. What the American public, he was all National Crisis Coordinate Center at Hoover, and I to make sure there's accountability, but also to learn safeguarding the President of the United States.
I just sweep an entire hotel. The culture. 3 attempts against him. Charlie Kirk is dead. All right, now let me ask you the fun questions.
Finally. Finally.
One thing I want to ask you is about, in the Nancy Guthrie case, I got frustrated because I knew from my sources they were trying to keep you guys out.
They did.
They did keep you out.
And look, here's how
time matters in an investigation.
The first 48 hours of anyone's disappearance are the most critical. And here's how these cases works. It is a state matter. It's a state and local law enforcement matter. What we, the FBI, do is say, hey, we're here to help. What do you need? What can we do? And for 4 days, we were kept out of the investigation. And when we were finally let in, Sean, look what we did. We went in and got the Ring doorbell. And we said, hey, is anyone talking to Google? I called the leadership at Google and I said, look, we know that there was not a subscription service to capture all of the data that would have been captured had there been a subscription service. But can we go into the cache? Can we go into the data before it's deleted and see what we can find? That's why you have that image, because the FBI worked with Google to put that image out. Another thing we asked to do.
You guys got that tape, which is
unbelievable. You have the director of the FBI saying that he called. Ed, we talked about this in New York City. This would never happen because our detectives and the people who are running investigations, they would have did that shit already. But now you have the director of the FBI saying, I got on the phone and called Google and said, hey, can you help us out here? What the hell was Pima? No disrespect to you, Sarge, because this has nothing to do with you. But what the hell was the upper management doing? And what were they thinking? Well,
I mean, during the press conference, the sheriff said that, they weren't going to get anything from this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there was
so there was a conclusion already made about what potential value of evidence this was going to yield. And according to him, there wasn't going to be any evidence yielded from analysis of this camera.
And he was also asked if there was any imminent danger to the community at that time in both of those press conferences. And his answer was, I don't think so. I wouldn't say that there's any danger to the community. You have a potential homicidal maniac at that point. And now we know, look, we're calling the balls and strikes here. The chances of her being alive are slim to none. We hold on to hope, and we'll always hold on to that hope. But at the end of the day, they did the same thing in Moscow, Idaho. Remember the president of the University of Idaho? He came on and said, "There's no danger to anybody." It took him a month to get Brian Kohlberger into custody.
We always say you don't know what you don't know. Okay. And you shouldn't be making statements as a matter of fact if you don't know what actually can be done investigative wise. Okay. And that's where the communication between local, state, and federal is critical. Because many people assume what other people's capabilities are without really knowing that. Okay. I can't tell you how many planning meetings I was in for high profile events that we were planning for here in New York City. And you had people like the fire department or the police department or EMS making statements about the capabilities of New York City Health and Hospitals or the New York City Medical Examiner's Office. Well, hey, time out, guys. Why aren't those people here? Why are we making these assumptions about what their capabilities are? They should be part of this planning group.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And, we shouldn't be speaking for what other people can do or don't do. We don't know all the facts. Okay. Right. And the only way you're going to get that is you bring them into the fold and let them speak for themselves.
And that's the problem here too, is that since February 5th, it's crickets. Now, I don't know, and I'm going to ask this to you, Sergeant Cross. I don't know if Sheriff Nanos just turned the spigot off of information of press conferences because he's embarrassed that he can't speak publicly, or the criticism that he got going back to his big ego and him being spiteful. But why is it that we're in day 100 plus of this case of Nancy Guthrie being abducted and, for all we know, murdered, and there's crickets coming out of Pima County? You have a public information officer and you have other command staff that could probably speak well. Could you give the audience a little idea of why there's nothing since February 5th?
Initially, I think that it was a combination of him taking a lot of heat from all of the things that he was saying that weren't true, that he'd have to walk back. But I know that internally there was pressure for him to stop talking. He was making the job of the detectives and CID working this case harder by the things that he was saying. It was very distracting. And so I think a combination of him getting rightly panned for his performance. I mean, as you showed before, he struggled to turn his phone on silent. I mean, it was completely unprofessional and embarrassing. And that's what really sucks for us, is that, I mean, I've been here, as you mentioned, 26 years, and we were a very respected law enforcement agency. And then you watch that performance, and it will take decades to recover from that. In the mind of not only the county and Arizona, but the country and potentially the world. I mean, there's people paying attention to this case from overseas. So
Right.
Just
yeah, I
look at
think
our chat. They're from all over the world: Australia, UK, the Netherlands. We have everybody from all over.
You said it
it's
well.
unfortunate.
You said it well,
Yeah.
Sergeant, because the first and foremost respect that you look to gain from a case like this is from your residents of Pima County. That's who he's there to serve. We work for the victims and their families as detectives, right? Our only job is to get justice for the victims and bring justice and some type of, if you want to call it, closure for the families by bringing these perps to justice.
You know, you have limited resources in your agency. Okay, you have a limited amount of detectives, and they can't be everywhere all the time, and you have ongoing crimes that are occurring, and now you take the bulk of your detectives and you throw them at this one case when you were offered hundreds and hundreds of agents to supplement your investigation, and assist in that manner, because the criminals aren't going to stop committing their crimes while the bulk of your detectives are out there working just one case. So I mean, it was definitely a missed opportunity, and how much of that was brought on by not willing to say, "Hey, I need help."
Yeah.
Yeah, and even still, to your point, as you mentioned, we have less than 100 detectives. Now it's with the task force, which is great. But that's still 5 detectives and a sergeant who are still tasked with this case that could be working other cases. And God knows there's plenty of cases to be worked in Pima County. There's a lot of crime in Pima County. And so, even though it's a task force, we're still losing bodies for this investigation, when if we just turned it over, yeah, there you go. If you just turned it over to the feds completely, they could dedicate hundreds of agents to it, and we would, maybe a few assigned to it just to help with state warrants if they needed them or something, but certainly not 5 plus a sergeant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go to the chat because there's so many people that are fans of Sergeant Cross. There's a lot of calls for Sergeant Cross for sheriff. Let us know where you're watching, city, state, and if you're from Ground Zero out there in the Tucson area, we'd like to say hello to you, and I'm sure the Sergeant would like to say hello. He's probably answering some of your calls for barking dogs and so forth. No disrespect to you, Sarge. That's
No, it's okay.
We know that that's part of the Sheriff Nanos punishment to you for speaking truth. And I want to be very clear. We're very pro law enforcement here. We support our men and women out there on the line that put their lives on the line day in and day out to keep the community safe, not just in Pima County, but across the United States and across the world. So we definitely support law enforcement when they're doing good. But when something is wrong, as Sarge said, as Ed always says, myself, we call the balls and strikes. And in this one, it's hard to try to defend the missteps and the mishaps and the way this sheriff is running the show. And we're going to get into the second half of this live stream about the lies that the sheriff told and how the board is working to have him removed. And we'll get into that in a few minutes. But Ed, you got something up on the screen?
So for Sergeant Cross, you have a question here. How many similar crimes in this area?
Similar with kidnappings,
Yeah,
like this?
Yeah.
Oh, and I think I kind of addressed or touched on this before. We've had kidnappings, but most of the time it's bad guy on bad guy. It's drug rips, very common down here, particularly before the border was sealed. In the early 2000s, I was working patrol. You hear about it all the time, but again, it's bad guy and bad guy. This type of thing, where an innocent woman asleep in her bed is taken, is not only is it unheard of in Pima County, I think it's unheard of in the country. Something like this. It's ultra rare.
So we got another question here for you. How many unsolved murders in Pima?
That I don't know. I know we have a cold case unit. So, I mean, certainly there's unsolved cases in Pima County. Yeah, I don't have that number off the top of my head.
I could jump in. There were 7 homicides in 2025. I don't know how many are solved and how many, like how many, what's the clear rate. But I'm sure that you can, with the Freedom of Information Act and this, all these stats, if you're a resident of Pima County or if you're even someone that wants to know, you could probably request this. And I think that they have to provide the information. But there was 0 in 2026 as my when I was scratching this out in March. So unless there was a string of homicides, which could possibly be, I don't know, but there was 0. There was a donut on the board for 2026 as of March.
Well, and last year's homicides, I remember the sheriff very publicly crowing about how all of them were solved. But what people have to understand is most homicides are not usually really whodunits. It's there's usually a very easy connection to make to the suspect. The toughest one we had was there was like a shooting murder at a Goodwill. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It is terrifying for the elderly because this person, is potentially still out there. It's something that my wife was pointing out is that people are taking an interest in this case because of her relation to Savannah, of course. But once this is hopefully over, solved and done with, we still have to deal with this kind of response to a crime like this because nothing has changed so far in the department. I have terrible news for anyone in Pima County. If they think this happens tonight or next week, that they will get any different of a response. We still don't have experience inside homicide. And I would wager a large sum of money that the sheriff would not allow the FBI to take over. So they're going to get essentially the same treatment.
Even with the egg on his face, Aaron, that he's got here with this is on the national and international stage. He looks, and excuse my language, he looks like a complete asshole when it comes to the way he managed this case. And he's not even saying, hey, I'm going to give my residents little snippets of updates. Like he's been completely silent. There's not even been a, hey, we're still looking for this. Hey, could you help us with this? That ship sailed and it's done. So that's the crazy part about this is that there's no change in sight for the residents of Pima County. I think the only way something will happen here is if he is removed, if he is taken out of his position here. He's an elected official, but there's a process that's going on. It's just so sad because when you look at it, there's many elderly residents in that area where this happened, right? The Catalina foothills, or they're scared shitless, and nobody's giving them anything to feel confident about because the media left. And Brian Enton told us this: the people in that area, yeah, they didn't like the crowds, they didn't like all the cars and the generators running, but now they feel like there's nobody there, and they're like, "Oh, we're on our own." So,
yeah. And he could take this opportunity. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. No, answer, please.
He could have taken this opportunity when you have everyone's eyeballs on you to give out just solid, basic information. I tell everybody, I've been telling people for years, high-mounted motion sensing floodlights in front of your garage is one of the best deterrents for crime you could possibly get. Remind people if they have cameras to renew their subscription to Nest or whatever, or get surveillance cameras that go to the cloud. I mean, he could have used that opportunity to give good tips to people, trim the bushes in front of your home, all sorts of basic advice that you can give to people. And it was a missed opportunity. If nothing else, it would have probably deterred some of the crime in Pima County, property crime. It would have given the residents of Pima County something to do and to feel better about their safety. Swap out the screws in your door with deck screws, 2.5-inch deck screws. I mean, these basic stuff that cops tell people who are concerned about security. He could have used that platform to assuage the public and get the word out and try and reduce crime and maybe kind of bring the community together and put the bad guy on notice that the community is taking steps to try and prevent you from doing this again. You know, under Clarence Dupnick, our great sheriff we had for a long time, we would be driving through the neighborhoods on patrol on midnights nonstop.
Yeah.
It would be gridded off. Every deputy would have assignments of neighborhoods that they would high profile, going through with their alley lights and takedowns and spotlights and making high profile. So you'd get the community to increase their security. You'd have deputies going inside of neighborhoods, and everyone would feel a little bit safer. But there's been nothing. And my personal opinion, the opinion of others, is that they just want the media to go away.
Yeah, it's omnipresent.
Well, yeah, speaking of that, I'm sorry, Ron. One of the questions from the chat is your agency still participating in the reality TV show Desert Law?
I haven't heard if they're going to do another season about that. That's a great question. I don't know.
I haven't watched any of it. I want to play this in its entirety. It's only 1 minute and 40 seconds. So let me let that go, and then we're going to continue the discussion about the process of having Sheriff Nanos removed, because a lot of people in the chat want to hear about it. Let us know if you want to hear about this, because I think that is the answer to the problem here. And once that happens, as we saw in Suffolk County with the Rex Heuermann case, it took many, many years for that case to start getting traction. And what did it take? A new police commissioner that came in and changed everything. So let's listen to this. This is Kash Patel with Sean Hannity.
One thing I want to ask you is about, in the Nancy Guthrie case, I got frustrated because I knew from my sources they were trying to keep you guys out.
They did.
They did keep you out.
And look, here's how
time matters in an investigation.
The first 48 hours of anyone's disappearance are the most critical. And here's how these cases works. It is a state matter. It's a state and local law enforcement matter. What we, the FBI, do is say, hey, we're here to help. What do you need? What can we do? And for 4 days, we were kept out of the investigation. And when we were finally let in, Sean, look what we did. We went in and got the Ring doorbell. And we said, hey, is anyone talking to Google? I called the leadership at Google and I said, look, we know that there was not a subscription service to capture all of the data that would have been captured had there been a subscription service. But can we go into the cache? Can we go into the data before it's deleted and see what we can find? That's why you have that image, because the FBI worked with Google to put that image out. Another thing we asked to do.
You guys got that tape, which was the biggest breakthrough during that case.
We could have gotten it days before. We could have also maybe gotten more data had we been let earlier.
Why wouldn't they want your help? Why did they send the DNA to a lab in Florida, not Quantico?
That's the other thing that you hit on, right? Again, we were saying we'll process it. I launched hundreds of agents and intel staff to Phoenix and Tucson just for this case, just to be on standby.
And they didn't want
just
you
to
there.
do the canvassing. And we said, we'll take the DNA. And again, it's a state and local matter. So it's their call on where to send the DNA. We have Quantico, best lab in the world. I had a fixed wing aircraft on the ground ready to move it immediately through the night.
Did they just say no?
And they said, we're sending it to Florida. And then, I don't know,
They have
60
jurisdiction.
days. They have jurisdiction, so it's their call. So,
Bad call.
well, that's for the American public to decide. And what we can do is continue to offer support. We would have analyzed it within days and maybe gotten better information or more information. Our lab's just better than any other private lab out there. And we didn't get a chance to do that. So I understand everybody's frustrations on that.
No, I'm not frustrated with you. I'm frustrated that if I was a sheriff and the FBI was willing to help me and time is of the essence, I'd want all the help I can get. Okay, let me ask you about that.
All right, so that says a lot right there. Amazing. So this is our friend from that 3-letter agency that we're discussing here, EB. Thank you so much for the 20. She says, big problem when agencies stop working together, when a leader cares more about the control or ego and being right than the actual mission at hand. Good leadership is about collaboration, using every resource offered. Just my opinion. You're right on. 100%.
Amen.
Yeah, 100%. And any time that you have a big case like this, you need that collaboration between all the different agencies, whether it was the state, the feds, the locals. You need everyone to get together and check your egos at the door, because guess what? Nancy Guthrie is what this case is about, and finding out what the heck happened to her is what this is about. We work for the victims and their families, and that's not happening here, or it didn't happen in the beginning. And this is no dig to the men and women of Pima County Sheriff's Department that are working hard and doing the best that they can. But when you have a shitty leader like Chris Nanos, this is the result. And look, we have crickets, and I keep saying it because everybody in this chat that's listening here and everyone who watches this replay is going to say, why is there no communication? Why isn't the people of Pima County being updated? And as you said, Sarge, reassured, or use this as a learning experience and try to help seniors lock their doors and their windows, keep their subscriptions to their cameras up, get more cameras. Like you said, get those floodlights. Where's the safety tips? There's nothing. I searched the Pima County Sheriff's Twitter, X account, all of the public information, the Facebooks and all this stuff. There's ungats. There's a big fat donut of nothing about this. Sarge.
No, you're absolutely right. It is. It's very frustrating, and I mean, this was very difficult. This is going to be a very difficult case to solve, regardless. The family had been on scene for a couple hours. I'm sure they were naturally trampling through things, looking for her in the home, and then you had patrol responding and searchers looking around. Which is not conducive for evidence retention, of course. And so they started in a hole. The driveway, I think it was driven over. So tire tracks were kind of out. So it was going to be a tough case to solve. And that's the time that you need someone in that unit with a lot of experience to overcome that hole that you're put in, that deficit. And if we had different leadership, there would be, I'm thinking of Jill Isley. If she was a fantastic detective and a sergeant, worked homicide for many years, one of the best I've ever seen. And that's when you need someone like Jill there to steady the ship and use her expertise and experience to help guide these detectives on a very tough case. But when you don't have any of that, and then it's compounded by command sticking their fingers in, given directives, to go interview someone for the fourth or fifth time because they can't keep track of who's been talked to. It's just a recipe for disaster, and it manifests itself in a lack of information being shared to the FBI. And I'm certain they took that as, they're boxing us out. When in reality, it's just incompetence, unfortunately.
Do you guys have a computerized case management system?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, so that's what that's there for. I mean, you do an interview, you put the information of the interview into the system, and then the supervisors can pull it up and look at it and say, okay, this is what's been done. Okay. And this is what needs to be done. And,
Case notes. Yeah. We
Yep.
utilize case notes that everyone can review that are under the report. And I'm not sure if maybe that was stymied or frustrated because of they were trying to restrict access to the case to keep information from slipping out. It's hard for me to say, but something was going wrong, clearly.
Yeah. Sarge, I want to ask this to you for the audience, our listening audience. Many people here, thousands are watching and are going to watch the replay. As it pertains to this case, is there anything that's new that could be discussed that's happening behind the scenes, maybe different directions? Is there any chatter about anything that's going on as it pertains to the investigation from Pima County Sheriffs?
Unfortunately, no. Nothing. And again, it's in the hands of the task force, and they're in a different building. So, if they're working on something, it's less likely it's going to slip out. However, to the rest of the department, it's pretty much back to normal and business as usual. And so it's sad to say, and again, hopefully they're working some great thing that we're just not aware of. I hope that's the case. yeah, I haven't heard anything.
Maybe we should switch gears now and talk about what's the latest with the sheriff and hearings and what's going on with his tenure at the Pima County.
It's a saga in of itself. So the board, as you guys and your audience may be aware of, a few weeks ago, ordered the sheriff to submit responses to 4 or 5 questions under oath. There's an old statute. The media likes to point out it's an old territorial statute, as though its age makes any difference. The Constitution's pretty old, and we're still big fans of that. But he was ordered to submit them. He submitted them on the very last day while they were in the middle of a meeting, so they wouldn't have a chance to review it late in the afternoon, and didn't swear to it. It was submitted through his lawyer, and it was not sworn testimony. So he was out of compliance for the statute. And we pointed it out. Supervisor Hines pointed it out. And so they had I believe the legal grounds to vacate him. However, I've been made aware that he submitted an affidavit after the fact, attesting to what he submitted to the board was true. So it makes I'm stretching my abilities as a lawyer, which I'm not to the very edge. But from what I understand, it makes it sworn testimony. But that creates, in my opinion, larger problems for him. He said things in his statement to the board that were materially, factually not true. And when you swear something that's not true, that's material, it's a crime. It's called perjury, and it's a felony in Arizona. So one of the first questions he was asked was about the circumstances of his departure from El Paso and his discipline background. He told them that he left, he resigned before he was facing a 3-day suspension. This is his testimony now to the board, that he was going to get a 3-day suspension. He challenged it. The chief rejected his challenge, and instead of taking that 3-day suspension, he resigned. That is not true. I don't think the sheriff understood or appreciated the fact that Stephanie Murray, that fantastic reporter from Arizona Republic, found not just his discipline IA card, she got his entire personnel file. And if you guys want, I can show you something that's exclusive for you guys. If I can do this here, if you get this is the form for the final IA, the review of his file before
Internal Affairs is IA, correct?
Yeah, the board voted unanimously to terminate him, and before he could be terminated, he resigned. So if you guys, let's see if I can do this. Yep, right there. If your audience can see, resigned in lieu of termination, and you'll notice right beneath it is the signature of Chris Nanos.
1982.
Dated helpfully. So he, I don't know how he's going to get out of this one. He has lied in a sworn statement to the board about a material fact. So
is the board going to push this over to the prosecutor's office?
So we submitted today, our organization submitted a letter to the board of supervisors through the clerk of the board, requesting them to refer this matter to the attorney general for investigation and potential prosecution. And in Arizona, if you're found guilty of a felony, you cannot hold office.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a question for you. And I'm asking this for the chat. Is the attorney general on board? Is this somebody or male or female? Is he or she somebody who would run with this, or is this someone who would just put it in their pocket and be like, maybe we should pump the brakes on this? Because everybody wants to know.
That's a great question. And it's a woman. Her name is Chris Mays, Chris with a K. And if you're taking an interest in this case and you want to do something about it, an email to Chris Mays' office encouraging her to take this up for investigation would certainly be helpful. And we, the deputies and detectives of the Pima County Sheriff's Department, at least my members, would greatly appreciate that.
I'm going to link it in the description. I'll have Kristen do that after we're done. How is it spelled? M-A-Z-E?
Maze, Mike Alpha Yankee Echo Sierra.
Okay, got it. All right, yeah. So we'll link that in the description. What's the time frame? What are we looking at here? Because I just pulled up your appearance. That was over a month ago, probably a little bit longer, right, Aaron? When you came with your suit and tie, and all the ladies were saying how dapper you looked at that meeting, and you got up there and you spoke well, and that was well over a month ago. What are we looking at here? Is this more bureaucratic red tape, or are we getting close to the dagger being?
Yeah. So the first hurdle is the board referring it to the Attorney General's office. They have a meeting Tuesday night next week, and they've been pretty reliable to refer these things. They've referred several things to the Attorney General's office before concerning Sheriff Nanos, and so I'm pretty positive that and Supervisor Hines has been great with this whole process, and so I'm sure he'll be pushing for them to refer it. So as long as they do what they've been doing so far and refer it to the Attorney General's office, and the Attorney General is so inclined, I mean, you guys have law enforcement experience obviously as well, and this doesn't sound like it's a very difficult investigation. This is comparing signed documents to each other, and I mean, I imagine it wouldn't take long to get in front of a grand jury and get an indictment if that's what they choose to do.
Yeah, definitely not. Here's the because this is a ground ball. He lied. You have it on, he put it on paper. He signed his name to it. So it really doesn't take much to realize that when he applied for the Pima County's Sheriff's Jail Division, that's a tactic that many people who are fired or resign with the permission of the police commissioner or police chief, that's their MO. That's what they do. They try to sneak in and backdoor into the corrections department, because most departments across the United States need personnel. It's not the best job, where you're working behind the walls with these, with inmates. It's not a prestigious position, but that's commonly done. And I'm not saying this, I'm making it up. It's the truth, so it's a kind of a backdoor way to get into the departments. And this is what he did in 82. He came in, he lied on his application. He should, in a lot of people's mind, be forced to pay back all of his pay from the beginning. I know that'll never happen, but I mean, this is major league corruption at its best. And shame, I got to say this, shame on Pima County for letting this happen, because ultimately, who's responsible for this slip up? Whoever signed off and said, we're giving you a job. So that person probably is long gone, but you never know. Some people last a long time in government,
Yeah. The person who missed this there's a good chance they're not even alive anymore. But it is a great example of why background checks are so important, because you never know the long-term consequences of failing one. It's a long pattern. I broke down on the interview room his discipline history, and he lied during an internal affairs investigation there, which he should have been fired for. I can't believe he survived it. He threatened to kill a witness against him in an internal affairs matter, and then lied about it, that he never stopped out with the guy, despite records showing that he did. So he lied there. He lied when he came to Pima County Sheriff's Department, both on his corrections officer application as to why he left El Paso, and his deputy application as to why he left El Paso. He said personal reasons, not they were going to fire me. He in December of last year, during a deposition with one of my cases, he lied about his discipline history under oath, and now this one under oath. I mean, it's just a long pattern. So, but as long as everybody does their job, both with the Board of Supervisors and the Attorney General, he might finally have to pay the piper.
I long for that day to happen because he, in my opinion, he shouldn't be in the position that he's in, and he was able to pull the wool over everyone's eyes for 38 years or however long this guy's been in there, and that's just a shame. Yeah, you shared his disciplinary record with me, and when I looked it over, I was just like shocked that this is a guy who was able to backdoor his way in to Pima County and exist and work his way up to being an elected official. That's just insane. That the residents of Pima County had none of this information available to him, and kudos to that reporter for bringing it to light. Because had she not done it, did the story, where would we be? This guy would be here. What is he on till 2028? What is it, a 4-year? Yeah. So.
And it coincides with presidential elections, the sheriff's race here locally.
Unbelievable. Any other questions from the chat? Let's go to the chat because we're at the hour mark, and I want to let Aaron go. He's been doing a lot of media, as he said, and thank you so much for. I just sent him a quick text message this afternoon. It was later in the afternoon. It was earlier his time, and he was just like, "Yeah, I could slip this in. I'm going to do an interview with Brian, and I'll go on with you guys." So I'm really very appreciative of your time, and I thank you for your service, your dedicated service, your service. I got to put this up. I'm going to put your full screen. Is that a young Aaron Cross in the background there?
It is. I told the interview room I'm in the middle. That was one of my last squads down on the south side of Pima County. Many years down there, midnights, Fridays and Saturday nights.
Love it.
That squad right there, in my opinion, is the greatest patrol squad Pima County's ever assembled. We have lots of stories together, me and those boys.
And thank you for your service too in the military. Do you want to talk just a little bit about your service?
Oh, no. I started 19 as a corrections officer. I didn't go in the military. So
okay, I see some.
That's why I have 26 years on, and I'm
I see military in the background. I was like, wait a minute.
Those are my SWAT drawings. A very talented local artist would like to come out and sketch. So I joined the SWAT team when I was in 2010. 2010.
Awesome. Ed, you was going to say something?
Oh no, I was going to agree with Sergeant Cross that some of the most memorable and best times of my career were on patrol. The camaraderie, the esprit de corps, the tightness that we had, and the capers we got involved in out there on patrol with my squad. It was fabulous times.
Yeah.
You earn your stories on patrol. That's what I tell youngsters. Don't be in a
Just
rush
tip
to
of the
get
spear.
inside.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not all, it's not all fun when you're inside answering to a lot of higher ups, if you will. It doesn't matter if you're a sergeant, detective. My brother retired as a lieutenant, and he said to me, it's the best rank in the department, but it's also all the shit runs downhill and it lands on your shoulders. So, I want to thank everybody for being here in the chat. Thank you to all the super chatters. I missed a couple of them. I just want to highlight them quick. Thank you, Gert. Appreciate that. Lisa, thank you for being a member for 10 months. Lisa, again, thank you for the 10. Teresa, thank you for being here. Justice for Nancy. Amen to that. Race and Rodeo, thank you for the 2. And Evie, thank you so much for that. We love you. We appreciate you. Be safe there in your job. Aaron, anything final that we may have missed here? And I know that we tried to cover as much as we could as it pertains to this, but anything for the listening audience, maybe as a final message as it pertains to Nancy Guthrie?
I think we mostly covered it. The detectives, I can assure you, are working hard right now. They're combing through all the tips, the thousands of tips that they got, and are still out there beating the bush as part of the task force with their federal partners. So there's no friction between the federal agencies and the line level detectives and deputies over with our agency. I can assure them we're working very well together, information sharing. So we welcome their help. We have no problems with the feds. So we are trying. We haven't given up on Nancy. And as I always say, the heart breaks for the Guthrie family. It's just awful. It's just something that no one can possibly imagine would have ever happened. And as I've said before, I couldn't imagine this happening to my mom, and how heartbroken I would be, and the thoughts that would be running through my brain. So we're feeling it too. And we'd love to solve this case.
Yeah, we don't wish this on our worst enemy, that's for sure.
Damn straight.
Yes, so on behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace and the entire staff here, we want to say prayers, strength, and positive vibes to all that are working on this case, the FBI, the local Pima County folks, and the community there. We send everybody all of our best, and we hope that this is solved sooner than later, because honestly, as these days and weeks and months go by, it just makes it much more difficult to solve. So Ed, I always like to give you the final word, and Sarge, we appreciate you tremendously.
Thank you, Sarge. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us here tonight in the chat. We appreciate you sharing your valuable time with us. I know you can get your true crime fix anywhere you like on the internet, and it's an honor to have you share it with us. With that said, folks, always stay safe, stay prepared, and watch your six.
Amen, brother. Stay safe, Sergeant Cross, and always our best. If there's anything that we could do or any messages that you need us to get out, we're right there, just a phone call away. So thank you, boss.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All righty. Have a good evening, everybody.